Hello, storytellers. Welcome back to the Storytellers Guild. My name is Max, and I am here to continue our writing journey. We are working through the writing experience, so without further ado, let's go ahead and sit down at our desk. We'll get started. We've got the document here. I will scroll up a little bit so you can see what we've worked on last time. So, last time we started up here with Quinn, and we worked through. If you'd like to catch up now, you're welcome to pause. You're also welcome to watch the previous episode. That'll get you through it. And last time we did some character development. We worked through that. I've been doing some thinking around that since. Um, and talking about these sort of topics and issues around like privacy and respect and the law is always sort of very multifaceted. And I want to make sure that I'm treating it appropriately. So we may revisit that scene. For now, I want to continue because it's so easy to get lost. I have a little bit of liquid inspiration here. I always encourage you to do the same whenever you're writing. I have a little bit of music going in my headphones. I hope you can't hear it. Um, and as always, the most important part of the writing is what we're doing now, sitting down to do it. So let's put some words to paper, shall we? Some beautiful rooms either one of them had ever seen. And what I envisioned for this scene, so going into any scene, I kind of have a sense of like the first couple of major actions that are going to happen. So this scene, they walk into this room, they look around, they see all the stuff in the room, they appreciate it. It's different than the rest of the house, which raises some questions. And they may or may not talk about it before the person that they have agreed to talk to comes into the room. And this person is going to be inherently uncooperative. They're going to be kind of like an obstacle, but this is going to be a chance for the protagonist, the detective, to really show off the way that he has solved so many cases before, and that is through empathy and humanism and relationalism, like just engaging with the human in front of him. So let's create that scene. Let's move into that scene, and we will talk through it as it happens. So the room itself is different. Everything else has been sort of gold and gaudy. So I imagine this will be more rustic, but also equally beautiful. You know, it's the difference between seeing a metal sculpture of a tree and seeing a real tree, right? That's going to be kind of the vibe I'm going for in this room. So the split across their middles. Bottom half. And I'm kind of looking at the room around me for inspiration. You can see the lower half is kind of like wood, right? And it's been painted. And then the plaster around it has also been painted a different color. And the idea with this room is it's going to be similar, but just like a different color scheme. Bottom half was covered in beautiful wood paneling. Oak from the looks of it. And polished. Maybe a bit too much. Above the deep, dark wood, the walls were painted a pale green, paisley green. I want it to be natural colors, right? Like I said, a tree. That imagery is immediately evoked for me, so green obviously has to be there. Maybe a blue on top. Dark green. In the spaces, so this is also kind of like I imagine like a study, right? And I'm trying to decide, like, even as I write this, I'm thinking about who did this room belong to, right? It either belonged to the Duke's daughter or to his dead wife, and we haven't talked about his wife at all, so maybe that's more interesting. Uh, in the spaces where bookshelves were not present, green was covered with beautiful pastel paintings of landscapes, of imaginary landscapes. So And the reason I choose imaginary is that as I choose the verbiage for this, I'm also deciding like who is the Duke and who is the person that was in this room. And the person who was in this room was more imaginative, obviously, because I said imaginary, but also like more whimsical, maybe more creative, a little bit more ethereal, whereas the Duke is maybe more tactile, more grounded. He's obviously deeply connected to material wealth, right? And not necessarily in a bad way. I don't want to be pejorative about that yet. So we'll see where it takes us. For now, let's continue. Um, normally there would be vases or pieces of art, tables and end tables were covered with plants. It was a verdant room, a vibrant room for the living, room for. And so I was gonna say like a room for the living or something, and that sounded a little morbid. So I realized maybe it's more exciting if someone says something about the room. For his daughter, a room for a room of her own, breathed Quinn. I think so too, said Detective. Watercolor. And because this takes so long to type out, I'm actually going to copy paste this name because he'll be in the scene for a while and it just saves me a little bit of time. We can spend more time actually writing instead of typing out words that we already know. Pulling at his chin, thoughtfully at his chin. There are a lot of people who hate adverbs in writing, especially when you're talking about actions happening around speech. And I don't care. I think it's fun. I love it. I think it fleshes out characters. I think it fleshes out conversation. And I think it's worth pursuing. So, pulling thoughtfully at his chin. But which her? And this kind of. He's also like voicing my own question here. Oh my gosh, this small keyboard. Sorry. Because I don't know if it's the daughter or the wife yet. Fun little factoid about grammar. Grammar is like a tool for us, right? So don't get more hung up on grammar than you are on the story ever. That's what editors are for. That's what editing is for. Like, just tell your story, right? Like, it's so important. But one of the things that I constantly see used incorrectly is that the punctuation goes within the quote or the quotation marks instead of outside of it. But which her? And in that case, you've got two, which makes it all the more confusing. Yeah. Quinn thought about answering, but was stopped, interrupted. So stopped is kind of passive. She was stopped. It's not as exciting as she was interrupted, right? You want to make it action. You want to make things happening. You want it to feel full of vitality, right? You want things to be happening to people, and the action, the active verb is always going to be more exciting than the passive. Active voice more exciting than the passive. So go with interrupted instead. I adore one of the other doors in the room being was interrupted by the opening of the other doors in the room as it was thrown open. And again, like you're not supposed to end your sentences in prepositions. I don't care. As it was thrown open. woman. And I choose a new paragraph here because now we're moving on to another scenario, right? Like the door is thrown open, they're interrupted, and now we focus in on this character. And so I want to make sure that that character gets their own experience, so I'm going to choose to start a new paragraph there. The woman who stalked in was clearly impatient with the excitement of the day. She carried herself with, and remember, especially you male writers, remember to describe women not just respectfully but realistically. This is a very hot topic in the writing community, and this is an opportunity for us to show we're not all a bunch of superficial jerks. A militaristic rigidity. Her hands were clasped firmly, clasped each other. Were clasped firmly. It's a little passive, but it's important, I think, because she is also kind of passive, a little bit removed from the situation. Clasped firmly behind her back. Her uniform was one of distinguished service. There weren't any medals on her chest, but her jacket. I actually had to move the towel that I used to dampen the sound of the keyboard on the desk. There weren't any medals on her chest, but her jacket had beautiful silver epaulets across the shoulders. And Google, how do I not know how to spell epaulets? Sure. It's those cool things with the circles and like the tassels that hang down, right? So, and I always think like one of the primary influences for me around like no nonsense women in positions of power is the captain in the movie Treasure Island, Amelia something. I won't look it up now. We can later, but just the way she carries herself and her breeches and her jacket have always stuck out to me. So she is similar to the character who walks through this door. Broad belt of fine black leather was strung across her hips, and the saber. I was trying to think of the word. It was like sword. No. Rapier. No. Too fine. Saber. She's more firm than this. And the saber at her side. Attached to it was no mere decoration. The edges of the scabbard were rough is the word I'm looking for. They were, and this is, so let me finish the sentence and then I'll talk about this concept. Were shabby with use. So you can say she fights a lot, or you can say that her scabbard is used, right? And I think it hints at the idea that she uses her saber, but the question is for what, right? And this raises more questions, and this creates more intrigue. And the idea here is to build her out as a character who does stuff when she's not on the stage, right? Because that's what makes believable characters, is that they have lives and they have backstories and they have their own desires and their own paths that they're on. So you want to make sure that when you meet characters on their journey, that they are also on a journey of their own. Even if you don't talk about it, you can hint at it. And that really helps to fill out some of the characters who might or might not be important. I'm not sure if this character is going to be important yet. Detective. This is why I copy pasted, she said curtly. Was told to find you here. That you had questions. So, and she's terse, right? She's not. She's impatient with everything that's happening. She has work to get back to. So she's not trying to be coarse. She's not trying to be rude, but she's also no nonsense, right? She's got others much more important things to talk about. I have no idea what those are yet, but it makes it more interesting. You had questions? Indeed I do, milady. Said copy paste Detective Watercolor, bowing low and sweeping his hat off his head. I am, as you already know, Detective Duncan Watercolor. This is my assistant detective. This is my assistant officer. And Quinn, so we haven't actually given Quinn's full name yet, and so this provides a chance not just to sort of like come up with a fun name, but also to tell something about her character. And it's one of the things that I've always felt relatively comfortable with is like, what is this character's name? And I imagine that Quinn is not her first name, but her last name. And as a contrast to the sort of formal title, I want her to have a name that's more floral because it evokes a past that might be inconsistent with who she is, which makes sense. So the name that pops into my head is Evelyn. So Evelyn Quinn. But maybe spell it a bit differently because we're in like an alternative universe, right? It's not just. So we'll do that. Evelyn Quinn. Quinn bowed stiffly. This is like her first real case, right? So she's got some performative issues. She wants to make sure she's doing a good job. She doesn't want to disappoint her superior. She doesn't want to disappoint the person she's interviewing. Most importantly, she doesn't want to disappoint herself. We're not sure why yet, but we know that she takes herself seriously, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, especially in someone with ambition. So we'll see. Lady. Detective Watercolor replaced his large pastel top hat. I gotta remind people a couple times just to like reinforce the character early because we're still very early in the story, but I want to make sure that that's like a part of who he is. And then he engages, right? Like, okay, we've done this, and we've all been at parties where we've met someone. I say, "Hi, what's your name?" And they say, Frank. And it's like, or "Hi, I'm Max," and they say, "Hi, it's nice to meet you." And you have to say, "And what's your name?" Right? Sometimes people forget. Um, Mostly it's not malicious. In her case, I think it's not. I think it's distraction. She's got a lot of other things going on. This is large pastel top hat. And who do we have the honor of addressing? You'll find it little honor today, detective, said the woman, glancing out the window. My name is, and I want it to be something smart. I want it to be something concussive, but also like a little bit elegant. So this is going to be tricky. And I like the name Raquela for some reason. It just pops in. Like Raquel was the first thing I thought of, and then I was like, so Raquela, Is she military? Yes, ex-military. So she wears the uniform, not the badges, because dishonorably discharged, maybe? I doubt it. Or released on good behavior. And these are decisions you make about your characters in the moment, right? Like I'm not an architect. I'm a gardener in general. So I'm out here looking at this plant and saying, "What's your name?" Um, my name is Commander. She is a commander, very much so. Raquella Faircourt. Quinn gasped. The and bowed again as low as she could. Commander. I wondered. Said Detective Watercolour, smiling warmly. You yourself, like her, like a woman of her reputation. What brings you into the Duke's service? So now we've got like a commander, military commander. Is she active military? Is she retired? Like, what is happening? I don't know. But that's okay because we don't know either. And she's probably not eager to say. Um, so let's start with that. So she's going to be polite, but also reticent, right? She's not going to just jump into description. So she'll say the same thing. Bring each of us into each other's lives. Detective. Choices. Nodded. If she didn't feel like sharing, he wouldn't press the issue. Not yet. Because maybe he will have to, but there's no reason to. There's a difference between looking for information and making people uncomfortable, right? And if he pisses her off, she's not going to be any more willing to help him. So respect her boundaries. Like, don't press it. Come back to it if you need to. And so his questions are how do you how long have you been in the Duke's service? A little over a year now, said. And for the same reason we give Detective Watercolour his honorific, we're going to give Commander Faircourt hers. I'm in charge of security. Milady. Said. Blow. A scandal. I know what a blow a scandal of this scale must do to your station. Must be like for your station. I I know it's a bit wordy. I know I know a scandal of this scale must be a challenging, because he's trying to like say like, wow, that sucks, right? Like you're in charge of security and you let his amulet be stolen. It's a problem. Were the windows not accounted for? Faircourt, Commander Faircourt scoffed. Turning, pivoting there out the window. Beyond the sleepy steeples. Sleepy, smoking steeples of the nobles' quarter. Sent wisps of smoke into the morning air. A few gulls, optimistic for leftovers, wheeled in the sheer blue sky overhead. I was a commander, she said. No longer a commander, he said. He didn't listen to your recommendations. Because they're having a conversation, and she's trying to say, I tried to tell him, but she can't, like, impugn her honor or her boss by saying he's an idiot or he made a mistake, right? She's trying to be diplomatic about it, and so she says, I am no longer commander. And so she's giving him answers without giving him answers, which is like what each of them knows needs to happen here. And he's learning it more as she opens up a little bit. Do you think any you think any of your staff, and so we're coming up on the end, I'm looking at time, it's about time to wrap up, but it's like, do you think someone on staff could have been responsible? The commanders I'm no longer acting commander because she's still a commander because she retired with that title, but or like moved on with that title. Anyway, commander's lip set. Commander's lower lip stiffened, like bottom up, bunch up. She's got to be tough, and she says, "I think anyone could have been. I think everyone is responsible." And we'll leave it there. That's a good she's dealing with her stuff, and she's in a place with like people who are trying to do their jobs, and she isn't responsible for any of these people. None of these people are on staff, so she's just like venting a little bit. So we'll circle back around to this later. Um, Thank you all for being here. Thank you for joining me on this writing journey. Again, my name is Max. If you made it this far, I really appreciate it because this whole series is designed to pull back the curtain on writing and to make it a little bit less mysterious about like what's happening as we write. So, thank you for being here for this journey. If you're still here at the end of the video, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. If you like what you've seen here today, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. More like this to come because there's always another story to be written. Have a good rest of your day. Thank you so much for stopping by.